Welcome and thank you for joining us for our final Life of the Straits video in our series. Tonight we are going to be talking about all things Mackinac Island. As you can see, I'm on Mackinac Island tonight, and behind me is the one and only Arch Rock. This is probably the most famous of the limestone formations that is on Mackinac Island, and it's going to be featured in our video tonight, along with some super awesome geological formations that are on the island. We're going to talk a little wildlife, and we're going to talk a little plant life too. So thank you all for joining me. I'm very excited to have you along for this journey, and thank you for watching all of our other videos in the series. And without further ado, let's go ahead and begin our journey on Mackinac Island.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Mackinac Island. I'm so glad that you guys were able to join us for our Life of the Straits program featured on Mackinac Island. Tonight we're basically going to talk about what Mackinac Island is, and we're going to cover some of the major land formations that are around Mackinac Island.
Mackinac Island is just a hop, skip, and a 20-minute ferry ride away from Mackinac City or St. Ignace. Situated in the heart of the Straits of Mackinac, this island has become world famous and sees many a traveler every summer. From the Native Americans to French fur traders, British soldiers in red coats, or tourists in shorts, many have walked the winding paths on this 3.8 square mile piece of land. Rising from the waves like a giant turtle, this island is sacred to the Native American tribes and has seen its fair share of peace and war. In 1875, Mackinac Island became the second national park in the U.S., just 3 years after Yellowstone. 20 years later, in 1895, the park went from national to state hands and thus became Michigan's first state park. Today, more than 80% of the island is state park. Since 1898, personal motor vehicles have been banned, making a trip to Mackinac Island like taking a step back in time. In order to navigate the over 70 miles of trails and paths, you will need a horse, bike, or a good pair of walking shoes to traverse it. Teeming with natural beauty, it is no wonder that thousands of visitors come to visit every summer. Regardless of the season, there's always something new to experience. After docking, we will travel through historic downtown to get us to our first destination, located by Fort Mackinac.
While most people only stay downtown, there is so much more if you just step a little bit outside of town. For example, right now I'm at Anne's Tablet, and look at this gorgeous view behind me.
At the bottom of Fort Mackinac, to the right, there is a staircase that will take you up the bluff. To get to Anne's Tablet, take this staircase through a tunnel of trees. Once at the top, take a sharp left and follow this path. Not all paths can be traveled on by bike and horse. This path is an example of one that can only be traveled on by foot. Continuing on the path, you will eventually come to Anne's Tablet. This tablet was made in memoriam of Constance Fenimore Woolson, who was an author and traveler. This 19th century writer visited Mackinac Island as a child. From this experience, Constance chose to have her first novel, Anne, take place on the island. An excerpt from the book is engraved on the tablet. Just behind the tablet is a stunning view of the harbor, Round Island, and Boblo Island. The island's natural beauty has even made its way into films. The Somewhere in Time gazebo is by Anne's Tablet and stands as a reminder that Hollywood became entranced with the beauty of the island. Released October 3rd, 1980, starring Christopher Reeves, Jane Seymour, and Christopher Plummer, this film is arguably the most famous movie filmed on Mackinac Island. Mackinac Island is a rocky island, being made of limestone bedrock. Across the island, there is only a few inches of soil covering the limestone bedrock. In several locations, there is hardly any soil, which allows us to get a closer look at the limestone beneath. You can see on the path where the limestone is broken through the soil and tree roots cling to the little soil there is in this area. Because of shallow soil on the island, mature trees have difficulty. If you look closely, you can see where the young trees appear much healthier than the older trees. Despite the thin soil layer, you will find a wide variety of wildflowers and shrubs among the trees. Traveling along the East Bluff, you will eventually come to Robinson's Folly. This limestone tower rises just behind Small Point and offers tremendous views. Continuing along the top of the bluff, we will make our way to Arch Rock. A bluff is a type of cliff that is broad and rounded. When looking at a side view of the island, you can see the bluffs rise, which gives the island the appearance of a turtle. Bluffs form when waves erode a beach, riverbank, or other coastal area. Over time, the waves of the straits wore away the lower part of the limestone by the beach. Once enough of the limestone eroded away, the upper limestone had nothing to support and fell into the straits. This formed the bluff we are walking on today. To the right, you will see the almost straight down drop of the bluff to the roadway below. On this side, you can also see trees, grass, and other plants clinging to the edge. The shallow roots of these plants help hold valuable topsoil in place, thus slowing down the erosion of the bluff. The trees holding the topsoil in place are called anchor trees. Taking a closer look, you can see where the anchor trees have started to curve in the trunk. Tree curving is a sign that the bluff will fall. As erosion happens, the soil begins moving downwards, causing the tree to grow with a bend to ensure it still grows straight. The more defined a curve, the faster the erosion rate. Arch Rock is a breccia limestone formation. Breccia limestone can best be explained as a limestone made from fragments of other limestone. The arch itself is created by the erosion of the rocks beneath it. Spanning 55 feet, this formation is very rare to have in the Great Lakes region, as breccia limestone is rarely seen in the region. The breccia limestone formed due to unusually high water levels in the straits about 5,000 years ago. Since then, erosion has weathered away the softer rocks below, forming the arch. One day, Arch Rock will no longer be standing due to erosion by water, wind, and acid rain. To the left of Arch Rock is a set of steps that take you up to the Nicollet Watchtower. Standing above Arch Rock, this tower was named in honor of John Nicollet, a French coureur de bois. This term refers to fur traders and translates to runner in the woods, or wood runner. Nicollet traveled through the Straits of Mackinac in 1634 in a birch bark canoe and became the first European to enter Michigan and Wisconsin. He is known for being the first European to travel into Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, and what is present-day Wisconsin, more specifically, Green Bay. At the end of this journey, he traveled back to Quebec, where he lived until his death in 1942. A stone and plaque stand at the watchtower in his honor. Just past the stone, you are able to see the Straits of Mackinac. Continuing our walk around the island, we come to Sugarloaf and Point Lookout. Sugarloaf is a limestone stack and is the largest freestanding limestone formation on the island at 75 feet. Looking at Sugarloaf, you can see where there are sections of rock missing. This is due to erosion. Formations like this can be separated into two parts, the matrix and the clast. The matrix is the fine particles or glue that holds the bigger pieces, the clast, in place. In Sugarloaf, the matrix is made up of limestone and dolomite, while the clast is made up of chert and other chunks of limestone. When Sugarloaf was being formed, calcium carbonate from the waters of the straits found its way into the formation. As a result, this made the formation stronger than other limestone formations in the area. This doesn't mean erosion still can't happen. Erosion happens when wind, water, and acid rain break down the matrix, thus making the clast looser and easier to fall out. As we climb the stairs to reach the top of Point Lookout, you can easily see where the matrix has loosened and caused pieces of clast to fall out. Standing 300 feet above lake level atop Point Lookout, we are able to get a bird's eye view of Sugarloaf. Hiding within the trees, sometimes you are even able to get a glimpse of some wildlife. Wildlife here looks a little different. The only way for wild animals to get to and from the island is by swimming during the warmer months or crossing the ice in the winter months. As a result, there is less wildlife than on the mainland. Past a field of wildflowers, there is a footpath that runs parallel to the airport. This path will take you to Crack in the Island and Cave of the Woods. Crack in the Island is an example of a long fissure or crack in the limestone that was formed by erosion. While there are many places on the island where fissures can be seen, this is the longest and most vivid of them. Thousands of years ago, surface water and groundwater mixed to form a solution. This solution caused a chemical erosion in the limestone that slowly broke down the soft matrix, leaving behind the clast. As the matrix was breaking down, only the most resistant clast was left. Over time, this clast began to break down as well, and helped form additional matrix that merged with the clast, giving us the breccia, meaning angular fractures that re-cemented together limestone we have today. Just a short walk away from Crack in the Island, you will find Cave of the Woods. Cave of the Woods at one time was at shore level. Today, the cave stands 140 feet above Lake Huron. This sea cave was formed thousands of years ago by waves striking the cave floor. As the waves began to erode the cave floor, a rounding effect happened as the softer limestone broke down. Traveling the various paths and trails, you can see a variety of plants, flowers, and trees. In taking a closer look at the trees, we are able to see that two forest types exist here, a coniferous and mixed hardwood. The coniferous portion contains cedars, spruce, balsam fir, and paper birch trees. This forest type is located around the edge of the island. Moving inland, we move into the mixed hardwood forest. This type of forest contains sugar maples, beech, red oak, hemlock, and white pine trees. A wide variety of wildflowers grow here as well. Pterylium, lady slippers, starflower, and spring beauty are just some of them. Because the island is a state park, you are not allowed to pick the wildflowers. The most famous of blooms and the flowers that have become world famous are the lilacs. Every summer, the island air fills with their sweet aroma and a festival is held in their honor. After exploring the interior of the island, it's time to head downtown to catch the ferry back. The quickest way is down Fort Hill. This hill runs alongside Fort Mackinac and descends the bluff. The walk down offers more great views of the Straits. From this vantage point, you are able to see homes, businesses, and historic buildings. While not always the easiest walk, especially after a long day, this is by far my favorite way to see the island, from a slow walk down Fort Hill towards evening. Every trip to Mackinac Island should end on a sweet note. Whether with ice cream or fudge, relaxing by the water is the best way to end the day. As the sun sets, we pull into the dock. Every trip around the Straits of Mackinac offers a different experience, whether it's crossing the Mackinac Bridge, splashing in the inland waterways, exploring the lighthouses, hiking through the Lachino Islands, learning about the past in Fort Michilimackinac, or traversing the paths of Mackinac Island. There is so much to explore. Thank you guys for joining me on my journey to Mackinac Island. In total, we only traveled 10 and a half miles of the over 70 miles of paths and trails that exist on the island. And even though you guys didn't have to walk it, I can tell you from experience, it was not exactly the easiest of walks at all points in time. I'm so glad that you guys were able to join us for this series, and I hope that you guys learned a couple things along the way. So now I am going to invite my very dear friend, Kelsey, to join us as a panelist. So a little bit about Kelsey. We met when we were both attending Lake Superior State University, and she is actually, she studied geology. So she knows a ton about geology, way more than I do, and she can answer any questions that you guys have specific to the geology of the island. Or if you have questions about Mackinac Island in general, like its culture or history or anything like that, I can answer those as well. So now we're going to open up to you guys to ask us any questions that you have.
Yeah, there was one question, Susan, that came through in the chat too.
Okay, so the question is, are ticks a problem on the island? We have noticed an increase in the tick population on the Stauning Peninsula and near Kalkaska. So the super cool thing about Mackinac Island is because it is an island, and I did mention this in the video, but the closest mainland to Mackinac Island is St. Ignace, which is 3 miles away. And that distance is from St. Ignace to British Landing. But because it's so far away, it does not have the tick problem like we have on the mainland. Actually, they didn't have any ticks on the island until about a year or two ago. And that's when they figured that somebody's dog came over that had a tick, and that's what actually brought ticks to Mackinac Island.
But I think we talked, there's not as many of them because of there's not enough surface soil for them to hibernate in.
Yes, there is not enough surface soil, and then also there is on this path there is a lot of migratory birds that travel over, and there are a lot of varieties of birds. So where Mackinac Island is lacking in wildlife, they're not lacking in bird population. So the birds will come and they'll help control the tick population. So it's not like, for example, if you're traveling in the woods, especially this time of year, basically in most parts of Michigan, especially northern Michigan, you have to do a tick check every time to make sure you don't have them on you. I have never found a tick on me every time when I go to Mackinac Island and travel on the trails and paths and things like that. And I go there a lot. So yeah. So I have a question for Kelsey. So Kelsey, we talked a little bit about, and you gave me a lot of information about the rock formations on Mackinac Island, but it is the limestone formation, the breccia limestone that most of the formations are on Mackinac Island. Can that be seen anywhere else in the state?
It can actually. That's a good point. Castle Rock and is actually a breccia limestone formation. So the one in St. Ignace. So that's one of them. And then there's a question when arch rock begins. So the question is, when arch rock begins to deteriorate, what types of things will we start to see? So first you'll see the arc of it actually become more defined because it'll wear away and it'll become thinner. And eventually it'll actually break away so that it's no longer, the arch is also referred to as a natural bridge. It'll no longer be a bridge and it'll just completely collapse. So eventually one day there won't be an arch there at all. The question is, so will the bottom of the arch erode first? That's a really good question. Without looking at it, I would probably say the top of it would probably erode first because that's more exposed to the rain and the wind. But there's also the fact that there is some vegetation there that holds it in place. So, I don't have a true answer on whether it'd be the top or the bottom that would erode first. And then the next question is, how long ago was the limestone formed? Was it once an ancient ocean? The answer to that question is yes. It started forming in the late Devonian, early Silurian periods, which was about 400 million years ago. And it was once an ancient ocean. Actually, all of Michigan is a basin, so it means it's kind of slopes down towards the center of the mitten, and it would be more accurate, I guess, to call it an ancient sea because it wasn't really salt water. And so that's where the limestone comes from, is from the deposits of minerals. And there's also, you can find some fossils on Mackinac Island, but just not a lot of them, just because the limestone has been broken up and then reformed in that breccia limestone, that you won't really see a lot of fossils, but you could find some. So really good questions. Anyone have any other questions? With the limestones, are there basements there? Do they have sinkholes like in Florida? So the limestone here actually is the bedrock, and you don't see a lot of sinkholes here because that limestone is the bedrock there. The only place we really get sinkholes in Michigan are more down in the lower Michigan, and those are actually more from old mines. That's usually where stuff ends up collapsing, like the old salt mines in Detroit, or if there were, there's probably old, I know there's old like copper mines and old gypsum mines and things like that. Like that would be where we'd end up with sinkholes, but it's not as much of a problem here, like in Florida. Ooh, favorite rock formations? I would have to go with pictured rocks. That's probably my favorite. But there's a lot in the Keweenaw that I really, really enjoy because I prefer more of the metamorphic rocks or igneous rocks. Susan?
Okay, so I am not very technical and I don't know a lot about rocks or anything like that, but I would say that for me, it would either be pictured rocks, just because I think it's so cool, especially if you've ever been there. I know Kelsey explained to me one day, like we were having a conversation when we were in a car driving, and I was like, pictured rocks is so cool because there's so many colors. And she's like, well, that's actually because you can see like the breakdown of where the water levels are over time. And I was like, oh, I just thought it was different colors. Um, so I like pictured rocks. If we're talking about Mackinac Island specifically, I I honestly think that Sugarloaf is super cool. I don't know why. Maybe it's because as opposed to like Arch Rock where you can't like go, I mean you can see it and obviously you can't go on it because it's a big drop down, and they have had people who've tried to go off and have fallen and gotten seriously injured. So that's why they don't let you walk across Arch Rock. But I think Sugarloaf is cooler because you can get up in person and you can kind of you can see and you can really break down, especially when you go, and I had a clip in the video, but you can see like where that matrix has broken down and allowed for that class to fall out. I will say, however, if you go to Mackinac Island, you are not allowed to climb Sugarloaf. And
Yep,
this
someone just asked that.
you can't climb Sugarloaf. What you can do is there is a rock path, and you guys could kind of see it. Like there's a rocky path around there, and you can walk around that, but you're not allowed to climb it. That's because of safety reasons. The first thing is because of the nature of what Sugarloaf is. If you were to climb it, there's a chance that the glass can break off and you would end up falling. And the other main reason is they did have somebody several years ago who tried to climb Sugarloaf, fell, got lodged in the rock, and when emergency services went to save them, they actually had to break the rock apart. So that is a rule that Mackinac Island has put out of why you shouldn't climb it. It's so you stay safe.
Yep. Do they have septic fields? I don't think they can because there's not enough topsoil in the ground. Like the groundwater would be too high. Because you have to have a lot of like a lower groundwater, a lot of surface soil to have a septic field.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing they probably have lagoons.
I believe so. I also know that they have like a water treatment center, if I remember correctly. And as opposed to a lot of us, and like how we get our water, they get all of theirs straight from Lake Huron. So say for example, if anything were to happen to the lake, it would immediately endanger their direct water supply.
Yeah. And then we had some other questions about, are there any other places in Michigan where there's a limestone bedrock? There are a lot of places in Michigan that actually have limestone. A lot of the islands will. There's a lot of really cool maps actually that'll show the different formations in Michigan. I was trying to pull up a picture. For example, it's not the bedrock, but there's a lot of limestone in Trout Lake, and there's actually limestone caves that you can go into in Trout Lake, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula. And yes, people do live on Mackinac Island year round.
So yes, people live on the island year round. It's between, depending on who you talk to, and with our recent census, we'll have a better number here in a little bit. But it's between like 300 and maybe upwards of 500 at a really, really good year of people live there year round. Basically, everything closes down. The only things that really stay open is there are a couple hotels, and then 2 restaurants that stay open, as well as Downs, which is which would be like the equivalent of our supermarket over here. So the only way to get to Mackinac Island in the wintertime is you either have to fly over to Mackinac Island, or if the ferries are still running, you can take that, but that's how you get to the island in the middle of the wintertime. Also, too, during the winter months, that's when construction happens on Mackinac Island. So in order to do construction work during the summertime, you have to have special permits in order to have that. Otherwise, during the off season, as they call it, and the shoulder season, which shoulder season is like at the end and the beginning of the tourist season, that's when they have all their construction. So if you go over there in the wintertime, you're lucky enough to go over there, you get to hear a lot of construction going on.
And then someone else, and I don't know if everyone can see the comments, but I thought it was cool that someone knew that they have a water treatment facility and a wastewater facility, and that they're really good about the recycling. They have an excellent program.
One thing I forgot to mention too, that's a really cool fact, is so personal motor vehicles are not allowed on Mackinac Island, and there is a stretch of highway, if you want to call it, that goes around the entire outside of Mackinac Island, right by the shoreline. And this is the only stretch of roadway in the entire state of Michigan that has never had a car accident on it.
Nice. Susan, do we know how many students attend the school on Mackinac Island?
Yes, I can tell you. So they average, it depends on the grade, but typically, like your smaller grades are like 2 students, and if they have a really large grade on Mackinac Island, it's like 9 or 10 students right now. So I think right now in the entire school system, they have like 69 kids who attend K through 12, and they do have, the school is open, and kids attend all the way up through. And there are, if you live on Mackinac Island, you grew up on Mackinac Island, that's where you went to school, there are several scholarships that you can apply for to help you go to colleges, just because of how remote it is as far as getting to other places, especially the mainland. They do have sports teams. So they have basketball, they have volleyball, let me think about this, basketball, volleyball. They just started last year. Mackinac Island Schools worked with the Equestrian Center on Mackinac Island, and they have started an equestrian team that will be eventually competing, doing horse competition, horse shows and things like that. So yes, they do have sports teams, and the sports teams do compete with other schools. So what happens a lot is they will end up flying or ferrying off the island to go to those games. Yeah. I don't know the exact number of private residences on the island, but there you basically have two, kind of like here on the mainland, you have your summer residence homes, like the places, especially in the more like touristy areas where they're only open during the summer because they aren't winterized. Like think, especially in Petoskey, they have a lot of this, like the older homes are not winterized, so you can't stay in them. Same thing on the island. Some of the homes are only used as summer homes, and you have some pretty big, like for example, like the governor's mansion, that's only, it's a non-winterized home, so it's only open during the summertime. And some of the bigger like mansions, if you will, that are there, they are your summer homes. But then you do also have homes where the people who live year round do, and typically those who do live year round, most of them live up in behind Grand Hotel. So when you're going up Grand Hill, you'll come to some stables, and then past that is where the residents mostly live. There are some who do live more down by like the shoreline and kind of like the downtowny area, and there are a couple other spots like out by Stonecliff. There's another location where year-round residents live. But and the other cool thing about Mackinac Island is up until pretty recently, they actually didn't have house numbers. So most of the old, and you can tell that they're like the older homes because when you're walking around, you'll see plaques and you'll see like the name of the house. So the Postal Service eventually made Mackinac Island change, but it used to be when you got mail, on the card, instead of like putting the address like we do here for mail to be delivered, you would put what the house is, like the house name, and then it would be delivered to you that way.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh gosh, number of fudge shops on the island. Okay, so I may get this wrong. There's Sanders, Reba's, Sandy's. Where's Reba, Sandy? Murdick's, I think, is on the island.
Yep.
I feel like I'm missing one or two more.
I just know Murdoch's is on the island too. I don't.
I feel
According
like,
to the internet, there's 13.
all right, well, we're going to go with the internet's answer of 13. Um, I am not really sure. There are a lot, and it is a hot debate about like which is your favorite fudge shop, and they all have different. I know they all have different recipes and things like that. Um, yeah,
Apparently, so I'm on the Mackinac Island website, and National Fudge Day is June 16th. Just FYI.
there you guys go. June 16th. Go get your fudge.
Yeah.
Point Lookout, which is the point above Sugarloaf. That is one of the higher places on Mackinac Island, but is not the highest. The highest place on Mackinac Island is actually where Fort Holmes sits. So this is the smaller of the two forts on Mackinac Island. So when you're coming into the docks, if you look up, you'll see like it's brown because it's made of wood. But there's a brown fort that sits on top of the very top of Mackinac Island. And this fort is the fort that actually the British used to take back the island from the Americans. And they built it. And when they took back the island during the War of 1812, it would have been. They built Fort Holmes and they fired one cannon shot down into Fort Mackinac. And in Fort Mackinac, there were only about like 50 American troops. And at Fort Holmes, there were 500 British troops. So obviously the Americans surrendered. But there's your other fun fact. Fort Holmes is your highest point on the island. Oh, yep. And Sheboygan High School's prom is held at Grand Hotel. St. Ignace, I believe theirs is typically held at Grand Hotel too.
And a lot of schools will hold award ceremonies there. So, for example, and there's the at Grand Hotel, what is it? The presidential award that high school seniors will get nominated for, and that ceremony is held at the Grand Hotel.
Grand Hotel is the most famous, I would say. Well, it is the most famous of all of the hotels on the island. And it is huge, huge to go in, lots of winding paths, because when they built Grand Hotel, they had a team that started on one end and a team that started the other end, and they worked and they met in the middle. And they built it in, I'm trying to remember, it's like one of the fastest hotels ever built, and I want to say they did it in less than it was either like 196 days or 146 days or something like that. They built it really quick. 93 days. Okay, I was wrong. I was trying to remember. Thank you, Kaylee. I knew it was really, really quick. It was built in 93 days and it opened July 10th, 1887. So with that, guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But we want to thank you guys so much for joining us for our Life of the Straits program. We've really enjoyed this. And we hope that you guys have learned something along the way. And we want to challenge you guys to go out into the Straits and have your own journey, whether that be going to Mackinac Island for the first time. Maybe you've never been across the Mackinac Bridge. Maybe you've never been to the inland waterways, or you've never been to Fort Michilimackinac. But there are lots of things to do in the Straits. So we want to encourage you guys to go out and try to find something new that you've never done there.